Hello, friends, and welcome to Sleep Tight Stories. Jake is tired, but cannot stay away from watching the latest episode of Super Scary Zombies Conquer Canada. He knows it is going to be scary and he might have bad dreams, but decides to watch it anyway. When Jake hears noises and sees shadows at 2 a.m., he is convinced again that the neighbors are vampires. The third night, he has a plan. He is going to sneak out of the house and take a picture to show everyone that he is right. But when he gets to the window, he gets the shock of a lifetime. Jake's new neighbors really are vampires. Jake finished his homework and went to brush his teeth. He was tired. Whenever he crawled out of his bedroom for breakfast, his sister Jennifer would always say he was born tired. But what did she know? She would be exhausted if she swam as much as I did. His parents were concerned, of course, but that's because they knew his secret. He loved watching this new show on his phone, and sometimes he forgot the time, and before he knew it, it was late. And as soon as he finished brushing his teeth, he was going to do the exact same thing. This episode was going to be super special, and he didn't want to miss it. He closed the door to his room, first making sure all his swim gear was ready for the morning. Coach didn't like him to be late or forget things, and since he was the fastest swimmer on the team, he was constantly being made an example of. Jake had had a lucky streak lately, and the coach hadn't yelled at him for 8 days. Jake kept a record on his Batman calendar hanging on his closet door. Satisfied that everything was ready for a quick morning exit, Jake climbed into bed and got ready to watch his show. Then there was a knock. Maybe if he ignored it, it would go away. Then the sound happened again, this time a little bit louder. The knocking wasn't going to go away. "Jake, are you awake?" his mother whispered. "I am now," Jake whispered back. If he made his mom feel guilty for waking him up, she might give him an extra cookie at dinner time. Opening the door, his mother came in. "Is everything ready for tomorrow? You don't want to be late for swimming practice. You know how Coach Tom is if anyone is even a little bit late." "I know, Mom. I packed everything and will be ready on time." "Be sure to go right to sleep. No watching shows. You need your rest," his mother said as she closed his bedroom door. Jake knew his mother was right, but what could one little bit of an episode hurt? Pulling the sheets over his head, he loaded his show, Super Scary Zombies Conquer Canada. "I don't think I should watch this," he said, but he did, and it was super scary. Jake had had too much to drink before bed, so he woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. As he crawled back into bed, he noticed a shadow moving across his wall. "What is that?" he mumbled, half asleep. Then he looked out his window and saw again yet more activity across the street at his neighbors. This was Lucas's house, one of his teammates and fellow Lego fan, and he long suspected that his family might be aliens, or vampires, or even vampire aliens. What else could explain their late-night activities and Lucas's grandmother's strange clothing? Sure, they said they worked the night shift at the hospital, But that doesn't mean they might not be up to some kind of creepy spookiness. Looking out his window, he saw the same shadow across the street growing larger and larger on the side of their house. Could Lucas's parents be vampires that could transform themselves into giant werewolves, he thought? Then, in a blink, the shadow was gone. Looking at his alarm clock, Jake whispered, "Yikes, it's 2 a.m. I need to get back to sleep pronto." The next morning, Jake woke up and felt the pain of too little sleep. He fell out of bed, put on gym pants and a hoodie, grabbed his bag, and crawled to the kitchen for a quick breakfast. Sitting at the kitchen table waiting for him was his sister Jennifer. "What are you doing up, stinky head?" Jake said as he pulled himself up to the kitchen table. "I'm driving you to practice, and you better be really grateful, or I will drive super slow," she said as she buttered her toast. "Oh no, you know how to drive a car? What have I done wrong that Mom and Dad would want to hurt me?" "I'll have you know I am a great driver, and you aren't sounding very appreciative. Mom needs to spend more time getting ready this morning. She needs to go to the office. That's your breakfast there," she said with a snark. "Yuck. It's gray and green and looks like brains." "Tastes like brains, too," Jake said as he made a funny face after taking a bite. "Ha ha ha. Mom made you special oatmeal this morning with some kind of vegetable mix inside because you don't eat enough vegetables. It looks delicious," Jennifer said with as big a laugh as she could so early in the morning. "The secret green aliens from the land of botanicals have taken over our house with their secret potion full of phytochemicals," Jake said as he shoveled the bowl of oatmeal in his mouth and washed it down with yucky almond milk. "I miss cows," he whispered. "You look like a cow," his sister said as she got up from the table. "Let's get going, old great swimmer. You don't want to be late." That night, tucked under the covers of his bed, he watched the same episode again, even though he knew it was too scary, and he knew that he should go to sleep. It was Friday night, but he still had early morning practice. He woke up with his phone still in his hand, resting on his chest. "I must have fallen asleep," Jake grunted. His legs were sore from laying in bed weirdly. So, after putting his phone on his nightstand, he rolled over into a more comfortable position. Then he heard a scratching noise. It sounded like a zombie was trying to get in at his window. So he opened one eye and looked. It was just the tree outside his window. As he closed his eyes again, he felt a chill, like a cold wind blew through. He reached down to pull up the blanket at the end of his bed and saw a shadow moving on his wall, just like the night before. That's kind of spooky, he thought. Jake checked his nightstand drawer for the string of garlic he made the last time he thought vampires might be roaming around, looking for new recruits for their team. He put it around his neck and slowly looked up and out his window. There were 2 shadows across the street and 3 people outside dressed in black walking around. They wore capes, too. "I knew it," Jake said. "They must really be vampires. Not aliens, as I suspected, but true, spooky, hypnotize their neighbors vampires." But before he could grab his phone for a picture, the shadows and the people dressed in black were gone. The next morning, Jake dragged himself from his bedroom to the kitchen table for breakfast, with his eyes closed. "Good morning, sleepyhead," his mother said. Why was she always so cheerful in the morning? Jake wondered. "Can we turn the lights down a bit?" Jake replied. "It's too bright." "Must you always be so melodramatic?" his sister said. "Unless, of course, you are now a creature of the night. You have been spending time with Lucas at his house at nighttime. Maybe they turned you, Jake," Jennifer said, laughing. "Why are you up, stinky head? You aren't driving me this morning, are you? I almost didn't survive yesterday." "Would you two stop teasing just for once?" "Jake, I didn't have time to make you oatmeal this morning, so I got you some Fruity O's." "Really, Mom?" Jake tried to sound disappointed. "Oh, well, I guess this sugar cereal will have to do." His sister punched him and whispered, "Don't overdo it, or she will feel bad and make it for you every day for a week." "You look tired this morning, Jake. You aren't watching shows on your phone again, are you?" his mother asked as she poured coffee into her tumbler. I was woken up last night by something strange at Lucas's house. Noises and scary shadows." "Here we go again," Jennifer said. "What are they this time? Robots from the future? Aliens from Alpha Centuria? No, I know. They must be zombies, because all the kids your age are talking about the super scary Zombies Conquer Canada episode that was on the other night." "Oh, Jake, you didn't watch that, did you? It sounds so disgusting." "It's not that. They are vampires, just like I told you. I don't think Lucas is. He's too cool and goes out during the daytime, but have you ever seen his parents at any of our meets or outside in the sun?" "I have seen them at meets, Jake, and you know already that they work nights at the hospital. I swear you have the biggest imagination inside that head of yours." "I think he just has a big head," Jennifer smirked. "Bleh," Jake said, sticking out his tongue. "There were shadows last night, and I think I saw them dressed in black." "Well then, it's proven. Shadows in black clothes, they must be vampires," his sister said, laughing. "I'll prove it. You wait and see." That night, Jake was ready to implement his plan. It was Saturday night, so he didn't have to get up early the next morning. So when everyone else was asleep, he was going to sneak out of the house and find proof that the neighbors were vampires. He got in bed and waited. And waited. On Saturday nights, his parents often watched TV, so he had to wait for what felt like forever. But eventually, he heard them walk to bed and then silence. Well, almost silence. He could hear some snorty snores. "Must be Jennifer," he said with a smirk. Then he heard a howl, like a wolf far off in the distance. "That must be their guard dog that always likes to lick me whenever I am over visiting Lucas. It's how he finds out if I am tasty or not. He must turn into a werewolf at night," Jake whispered to himself. Jake looked up and saw a shadow growing on his wall like it was alive and deliberately trying to be spooky. "It's time," he thought. To be ready for anything, Jake went to bed wearing his clothes, so all he had to do was jump out of bed and, slowly on his tippy toes, make his way from his room to the back door in the kitchen. He opened the door slowly and quietly. It made a slight creak. So he stopped and listened. There were still loud snores. Closing the door quietly, he looked around him. He looked left, right, straight ahead, and up on the roof of their house. In every scary movie he had ever seen, including the Zombies in Canada episode, the main character was always surprised by a monster, which suddenly appeared beside them. Jake then ran to the edge of his house and looked across the street. If Lucas's parents were outside before, they must have gone in. He ran across the street, first stopping to look both ways. Old habits die hard, even when no cars are on the street. Then he did his best ninja impression and crouched down low, hid behind a bush. He peeked above. "No one outside," he whispered. Then he saw movement in the window by their kitchen. "This is my chance to find proof." So Jake took out his phone and launched the photo app as he slowly, ninja style, made his way to the window. Looking in the window, he couldn't believe what he saw. It wasn't that he doubted himself, but he just wasn't accustomed to being right about these things. Lucas's parents were both standing in the kitchen, wearing fancy black suits and capes, and drinking some kind of red liquid from fancy glasses. They even had long fangs. That must be blood they are drinking. His hands were a little shaky, but he quickly took a few photos. Then he heard a sound, a panting sound. Their pet werewolf was standing beside him, looking at him. He should have practiced situational awareness, but instead of being its snack, he decided to run. As he ran out onto their front lawn, he tripped, and immediately the baby werewolf was on top of him, barking and drooling all over his face. "Goodbye, daylight. Hello, moon," Jake said out loud. In what must have been a millisecond later, Lucas's mother stood over him. "Is that you, Jake? Are you okay? Why are you out so late at night?" You are a vampire," Jake stuttered. "Yes, Lucas's father and I are both vampires. Let me take you home." Lucas's mother delivered him to the back door, where his sister was waiting for him, laughing. She had been up late reading a book and watched Jake the whole time. "You are going to be in so much trouble in the morning," she whispered. Smiling, Lucas's mom said, "Tell your mother I will give her a call before we go to sleep." The next morning, his mother was waiting for him in the kitchen, and she didn't look so pleased. His sister had just told her what had happened the night before. What a stinky head. Why would she have to do that, he thought. "What do you have to say for yourself, Jake?" his mother asked. Jake knew that she only used this tone when she was upset, and if he hoped to get out of this without a week's worth of new chores and the loss of his phone, he would have to come clean. "They are vampires, just as I have been telling you both." Jake's sister almost fell to the floor laughing. "First, you know you are not to leave the house at night. You are too young. Second, it's a costume. The hospital staff have been wearing costumes all week to entertain the sick kids and liven up the hospital now that it's fall." "It was a costume, you dork," his sister said. "Jennifer," his mom called. No name calling. "But I have a picture to prove it. They have long fangs and drink blood." Jake brought out his phone and looked at the Photos app. The first photo was a complete blur. The second showed nothing, and the third was a photo of the wall. "You will go over after breakfast and apologize. You gave Lucas's mom a fright. Then, no more shows for the rest of the semester. They are causing you to see things that aren't there." "Mom, I can't survive." "Oh, you certainly are a silly boy," his mother said. "A stinky head more like it," his sister said. And that is the end of our story. Good night. Sleep tight.